What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Fully Spooled. If you've been following my channel for a while, you know that I've been putting an LS engine into my Lexus SC400, and last upload was actually a live stream of the very first start of this engine. Which is really exciting because it is real progress. The engine runs, it idles, it doesn't drive yet because I'm still missing some parts and stuff, but I'm at a point now where my videos are quite a bit behind the actual work that I'm doing on the car, which is why I did the engine starting live stream before I showed things like my exhaust manifolds going on or some other stuff that I've already done that is already done on the car but I haven't shown yet. So now that the engine is started and running, I need to do the last couple episodes like bolting on my exhaust manifolds, which will be this episode, along with spark plug wires, my transmission mount, which will be next episode, that kind of stuff. So yes, the car is starting and running now, but I need to do a little bit of catch up to that point, and then we can do suspension and stuff later on. So let's get started. Alright guys, and here we have all the parts we'll be installing on the car today, starting on this side with our Blue Streak 8.5mm spark plug wires. These, I don't know a whole lot about this company other than they have really good reviews online from what I've seen. They're 8.5mm wires, they're made in the US, so I'm excited to get them a try. I don't know how you can really mess up spark plug wires. There's a lot of misinformation out there and weird theories about how they work with different kinds of coils and lengths and resistances and stuff, but overall these have a really good rating, so I'm excited to give them a try. Next, we'll do these V-Power plugs from NGK. These are the cheapest NGK plugs you can get for the LS engine. They're just standard copper plugs, and I got them cheap because I'll be replacing them pretty much every oil change, which is like basically every track day, so cheap is good. I also got some of these like fiberglass sort of, not quite sure what the material is, but this is a heat shield for the boots of these guys so they don't melt in between the runners of the exhaust manifolds. We have our standard factory replacement AC Delco oxygen sensors. I got some of this aluminized sort of heat sheathing to put around things like my battery cables, my various oil lines and stuff in the engine to keep everything from melting. So that'll be really useful. I'm gonna have to cut these things down to size and just kind of wrap them around all of my wires. And lastly, we have the exhaust manifolds, and these are from a 6.2 liter LSA engine out of an 09 Cadillac CTS-Z. That engine came with 556 horsepower originally, so they should be plenty flowing for my little 4.8 liter engine. What's really cool about these guys is that they are mostly symmetrical, which helps a lot for my engine bay configuration. And what I love is that it has some of the downpipe already attached to these guys, which is really useful for me because it has the bung here for the oxygen sensor already in place. So all I need to do is just pop out the oxygen sensor here, and then I can screw it right into the factory bung here with no weird welding or any kind of weird stuff going on. And all I have to do then is just attach a flex section here and then my rest of my exhaust going to the back of the car. So that's a huge help and time saver for me. Oh, and I almost forgot, we have two exhaust manifold gaskets, which are the GM factory replacement parts from AC Delco. These are pretty much the only recommended exhaust manifold gaskets for any factory exhaust manifold going on to any LS engine. Also, a lot of companies that make aftermarket headers use these as well because they're really good gaskets and they're pretty cheap. As always, links to all of these parts will be in the description below, except for maybe those. Now, I've had this engine for several years and I've never pulled the plugs out, which is kind of crazy. So nothing super abnormal about any of these plugs really. Some of them are a little bit darker than the others are, but honestly there's not that much, little bit of junk in there just from probably dirt blowing in the exhaust ports, but other than that there's really nothing alarming about any of these plugs. If anything, they're in pretty good shape. These should be pre-gapped, which means it'll have a little cardboard sleeve. Well, it does have a cardboard sleeve around it, so when it comes like this, that means it's generally pre-gapped from the factory. But I should check the gap anyway, just to make sure. So these plugs seem to be gapped right at 0.035, which is way too small for this engine. So I'm gonna up the gap a little bit so I can get up closer to that 0.050 number. I'm seeing anywhere from 050 to 060 online and that kind of stuff. So I think I might go right here and give that a shot. So we'll gap it right on the 050 number right there. So we have all the spark plugs installed. Next, before I do the actual manifolds, I want to get my wires down here protected from the heat, because the manifold will go right down right here, and that's going to be very, very hot for this stuff and even my fuel line here. So I got this aluminized protective sheathing here, which I think is designed to protect up to 2,000 radiant heat Fahrenheit, which is what I need for something that's not going to be touching my actual manifold. So I'm going to put these wires together and then wrap this around those guys and probably do my fuel line as well. So while I'm here removing the fuel line, I'm actually going to replace this older style quick disconnect fitting with this newer Russell design 644123. Part will be in the description below as always. Cool. I feel much better knowing that I have a safer version of that quick disconnect fitting installed. Now that we have the aluminized shielding in place around our fuel hoses and battery cables, it's time to put the manifold on. Before that, I'm going to get my O2 sensor installed right here, but I'm going to put some anti-seize on the threads, put the guy in there. Hopefully it won't hit anything in the engine bay, and I can pop it on the engine. I also went and picked up a brand new dipstick tube and dipstick from an F-body, because I have an F-body pan on this engine instead of the truck oil pan, so I can't use the truck stuff. So I'll get these guys installed with the manifolds. So this is the factory MLS gasket from AC Delco, and MLS stands for multi-layer steel because there are multiple layers of steel sandwiched together and they're actually riveted together right here. And what's cool, it even tells you what side the manifold goes on. So this says manifold side, and then it says down, so you know that it goes on exactly like this. And these are reusable, but they're so cheap that you might as well get new ones each time. They're about like 16 bucks each. So we have the manifold installed and the dipstick tube installed, and it fits perfectly actually. Got lucky in that one, so the last step here, come on. Just like that. Looks almost stock. Alright, with the manifolds installed and the dipstick working out pretty well, next we're going to do our spark plug wires, and these guys just fit in the plugs between each of the runners of the manifold. I went and picked up one of these guys, actually 6 or 8 of these guys, which are fiberglass heat shields for the actual wires that helps keep the heat down on the wires themselves, so hopefully these won't melt or have any heat related issues. So I had trouble getting these on at first, but there's a metal ring here I realized, and if you take some pliers and you kind of pop it in there and expand that ring just enough, you can make it so these plug wires fit inside here, and you can pull them through like this, just enough that they will go around the plug and still give you enough room to go up and around the wire as well. Just like that. Alright guys, we have the LSA manifolds installed on both sides along with our spark plug boots and then our spark plugs and our wires. So we're getting pretty close here. That's the driver's side, obviously. And then for the passenger side, we have the dipstick installed, as well as more plug wires, plugs, boots, and my other LSA manifold. One annoying thing is it does connect down here and it hits the frame rail. I'm going to see if I can rotate the engine a little bit to help to have that not happen, but you know, eventually I need to have a full custom exhaust anyway, so maybe I'll have to just move it up my list of things to do. But I think the engine minus fluids is now ready to start, which is really cool. Well, since this episode's a bit shorter than some other ones, I figured I would go through a couple things that I've done in the engine bay that don't really deserve their own episode. So, like, for example, I have my brake booster line going from a check valve here, the brake booster to the check valve to the back of the intake manifold over there. That's the Lexus booster line that came with this car, and it just fits right onto the back of the intake manifold, which is really nice. While I'm over here, I also got my PCV system figured out. This is a factory GM check valve, and here that goes up along there, along this side of the engine into this guy, and this is an eBay catch can that I modified. I didn't do an episode on that because there are a lot of people online on YouTube who have done modifying catch can episodes, but I do have a second one that I need to build. So if you want to see me build one or think it's worth it, I will totally do an episode on that. Just let me know in the comments below. But basically the line comes from the PCV valve up here, around here to the catch can, through there, and then into the intake manifold there. And the other one goes here along to here. And eventually what I would need to do is just add another catch can right here and run this down to that, and then another line from there up to the throttle body. So yeah, let me know if you want me to do a episode on modifying one of these guys. I also installed a new oil pressure sender back here in the factory place of the LS engine, and I have that running up here through the firewall into the engine, into the cabin here to my oil pressure gauge, which you may have seen in my live stream of the engine starting up for the first time. But other than that, I ended up having to get a little bit longer belt because my belt was a little bit too short, so that's about an inch longer. I'm not really going to share the part number because my belt routing is different than probably anybody else's, so there's no point in having the exact same belt number, but I can share it if you guys want. Oh, and I also installed this blue line right here, which is my steam line that goes from the top side of the driver's side of the engine down underneath there to the top part of the water pump down here. So that is used to vent excess steam and stuff out of the top of the engine. I also welded up my panel here that had my wires going through it before, so that's all solid now. So this guy, that guy up here are all touched up and welded and painted. So now my firewall, I believe, will pass tech. Alright guys, that's all for this episode. We have the exhaust manifolds done, spark plug wires, the boot covers and everything. The next episode is going to be my transmission mount, and then after that, I think I started the car. And then after that, we have to do other stuff like filling up fluids, bleeding the clutch, doing some brake work, coilovers, drift knuckles, and then seeing if it'll move. So really exciting progress. Thanks for watching. As always, stay tuned for more Fully Spooled. Check out my social media links, Instagram especially, fully_spooled for all my up-to-date info. And that's it. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time. So for the throttle, I push the pedal down, and it goes and stops on that little stopper down there. And that keeps it at 91.8%. And then when I push it all the way down, like this, that makes it 100.